Katie, thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. Nervous?
Before, yeah, that's fine. I'm sure that you can rub your foot and you'll be feeling better about that.
Yep.
I don't know if that's exactly how this works. So before we get into the questions, so we're going to talk about, can you do well at sales if you have high empathy? And so you actually have two businesses, right?
I do.
So you have a network marketing business and your other business. Tell us about that one.
So my other business is I'm a foot zone therapist, foot zone balance, whatever you want to call it. And what that is I'm assuming you want me to tell you a little bit about how that works. Yes.
Sure. And then I would just like to tell everyone how I met you.
Okay, perfect. So I do foot zoning, and the simplest way to explain it for those of you that have heard of reflexology is it's similar to reflexology in the sense that there are energy pathways that run through our body, and those energy pathways end in the extremities. So the bottom of your feet being one of those, and through a detailed map, I can access those signals and energy pathways and try to quote unquote open them or stimulate them to get your body in a more homeostatic place, a more balanced state.
Awesome. So can I tell them how I met you?
Please.
Okay. So one of my former clients, and now we've crossed into the friend zone, so I'll call former client / friend, said, Tasha, you need a foot zone. She said, basically, you're a disaster. I'm going to hook you up with Katie.
You don't have to be a disaster to get a foot zone. It's fine.
Well, but that's kind of how the content, I mean, those weren't the exact words, but that was basically it. And so I said, okay, so what is that? And she's like, you'll see. So then I go and I meet with you and everyone's like, oh my gosh, Tasha's going to meet with Katie. Tasha's going to meet with Katie. What is this going to be like? And so now I refer you as my energy healer. So,
I love it.
Yep. And it has just been awesome knowing you. And one of the things I'm just so impressed with is how you carry yourself. And I love meeting good salespeople. And I think that you are one of them. And so what I would love to chat about is this empathy thing. So when we were talking, you mentioned that your number one talent per the StrengthsFinder assessment is empathy. And we just get a lot of questions of, if I am really empathetic, I might be in the wrong business. I can't do my network marketing business because the people that are successful are typically like high achievement, action oriented types. And I have the wrong stuff. And I was just so impressed with your process, which I want to share more about after you talk about your thought process. And I just feel like our audience would really get a lot from it, because in network marketing, I mean, you come in with this dream of, I want to do well. I don't have to necessarily have experience in a certain thing, right? It's like, I can come in and I can make whatever I want to be. And then people run into this roadblock when their feelings get out in the way of them actually doing their job, and the perceived feelings and such. And so would you just share how you were before, when it came to, I guess, asking for clients to move forward, or even in your network marketing business, because I know you do both, and what changed for you, and what is your thought process now?
Okay, so I would say that I agreed with everything that you just said. I was one of them, that I can't be successful in this. Basically what it comes down to, it was fear-based in so many ways. And I remember when I took the strengths assessment, and as I'm sure many people have felt, you get your top 5 and you're like, oh, shoot, well, I want those top 5, or I want those top 5. And I remember empathy popping up as number 1. And I've always thought it was a good thing as far as my life, but as business goes, I didn't feel like it was a strength. So I was like, how is empathy my number one? I was at that time using it more as a weakness than I was as a strength. And I can't remember the exact quote, but somewhere it's, these 34 strengths, as we call them, are talents, and depending on what you do with them, it can be a strength or a weakness. And at that time, I was using it as a weakness. And what I mean by that is I would meet with people, or whether it be in my doTERRA business or in my foot zoning business, and my perception was my truth. So I would be talking to someone and I would see them pull back a little bit, or what I perceived is not necessarily losing interest, but in some way holding back a little bit. And so I would take all of the choices off of the table for them, thinking that I was doing them a favor. Like, I don't want to put them in an awkward situation, so I'll just, I'm empathizing with them, so I'll just take that away. When in reality, it wasn't helping at all. So that was kind of where I was beforehand. And as far as like asking for referrals or putting myself out there, again, that fear base of, well, what if they don't need that? What if they don't like that? What if they, all of, what I was thinking that they were going to do, when really I didn't have any idea, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. So what I'm hearing is that you didn't want them to feel a certain way, and so you just took everything off the table.
Correct.
Okay, so then how did that impact your businesses?
I didn't grow. I didn't do anything really. I kind of stuck to my friends and my family, my close, the people that were closest to me. And then, if someone approached me about it, that was fine. I can talk to you all day long about either one of those if you approach me. But for me to feel like I'm imposing on you in some way, which for me is I feel like my empathy comes from, I don't want to impose on anyone. I don't want to make you feel awkward or make you feel like you have to do this thing. So it was a big fear of mine to impose on someone.
Yeah, that's well said. I don't want to impose on anyone. So what changed for you?
What changed for me? So this was, I was at my sister's retreat, doTERRA retreat, and we were talking about strength. We had, she had Jeremy come, and this was kind of the beginning of my shift. And Nicole got up, and that's my sister, and she talks about, being a confident person. And for me, I was always like, oh, I'm not confident. I don't have these. I don't have this that Nicole has. I don't have this, blah, 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 blah. And at first, the first thing that she said that started it off was, she goes, confidence is a skill. And that was the first click. Like, what? I don't just have to have confidence? So it can be a skill that can be learned. Like, my foot zoning was a skill that was learned. I went to school for it. I practiced it. I turned it into a skill. So empathy can be a skill. Confidence can be a skill. Network marketing can be a skill. And I love that. That was the first little shift for me. And then Jeremy gets up and he presents, and he's kind of going around the room and, what are your top strengths and how are you using them? And of course I raise my hand and I'm like, empathy, like how I'm using that as a weakness, how is it a strength? And he goes, well, how are you using it? And I explained to him what I just explained to you. And the thing that he said that stuck with me the most is, you're taking away people's agency. And for me, there's no bigger way to impose on someone than
Can you explain, Katie, what agency means for people that may not understand that term?
Sure. So agency means basically not giving them any choices. They have to do this one way, the correct way. This is the only way that can be done. or basically not giving them any choices is the easiest way to explain that.
Yeah. So basically you have to do this my way, which is imposition.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So then how did this change? How does this realization change the way you did your businesses?
So it no longer became focused on me and what my perception was. It became, I feel like I'm a very genuine person, and so my genuineness, I felt like shined a little bit more. Like I could talk and empathize with their situation, and I became a better listener. I think that was a big key, is to listen and to really hear what they're saying and then give them the choices. And whether what they do with that is fantastic, whatever they choose, but at least they have a choice. I'm not taking that away from them.
So how did you see your businesses grow?
A lot. I'm like, I don't have exact numbers, but
we wouldn't expect those kinds of numbers from an empathy person. That makes sense. I mean, it feels like my businesses grew. That should be enough for you.
I mean, the numbers do match up, but I just don't have the exact numbers.
I mean, would you say it went up like 10%, 20%, 50%, 100%?
It doubled at least.
Doubled. Holy cow.
Yeah.
Awesome.
For sure.
Awesome. So how do you see yourself using this specifically in your foot zoning business? And then I want to give my perspective on it, and then we can talk about how it impacted your network marketing business.
Okay.
Okay.
Tell me that again.
Foot zone. Okay, so you showed yourself, you were listening, gave choices. How did you see this show up and leading to growth in your foot zoning / energy healing business?
So I think how it grew the most, as far as the empathy came, again, was it all comes back to that fear. But I wasn't nervous. I wasn't scared to say, hey, how do you feel about doing this again? Like, the foot zone itself isn't going to be, it will be great one time, but the more that you do it, the better you're going to feel. And that, again, it's true. It's not like I'm trying to sell you something. It's this genuineness, not afraid to say, hey, this is what I feel like would benefit you. And then again, not being offended when they say no, or if they say yes. Just loving either way.
How did you keep yourself from not being offended?
I think it came down to that mindset shift again, because I wasn't in a space to be offended. Before, if I wasn't offering anything, so therefore I couldn't really be offended. But when I am offering something, and then just I feel good about it either way, because I'm not taking away anything from them. I'm giving them more. And then what they choose to do with that is the best part.
Gotcha. So I'm your client. Am I a customer or client? What would you call me? Or just some weird person that drives around looking for you? Okay. So just to get everyone on the same page, I never miss work. Never miss work. I'm a straight 8 to 6 every day kind of person. And when Katie came into town, I blew off my afternoon and I drove 2 hours in LA traffic to see her. This is not normal behavior for me. So, Katie, is it cool if I explain my perspective on your empathy?
Absolutely, please do.
Okay. Now, some of these perceptions might not actually be true, as we examined. But I will tell you that I felt like and feel like literally the only client in the entire world that you have. I know that's not true, and I certainly hope it's not true I hope that that your business grows crazy after this podcast. But I felt that way. So when I went into this situation where everyone was laughing and pointing at me and saying, well, let's not have her work before her speech. Let's make sure she finishes the work we've paid her to do and then meet with Katie, because God knows what's going to happen. I was incredibly nervous. I was like, what on earth are they going to do to me? What is this Katie going to do to me? And I sat down and you started your thing and you did a really good job explaining it. And then you just asked really good questions to help understand me and know me. And I mean, I will talk about my stuff, but certainly not to the extent that you have gotten. And the way you listen and the way you meet eye contact with people and the way you hold that space for like some pretty heavy stuff, I was just blown away by the safety that I felt, because I, as you well know from my calloused heart that you identified, I very rarely feel safe. So Katie found she said, do you have a calloused heart? To which I responded with a few swear words.
What does that even mean?
What does that even mean? And how do you know? And obviously, I mean, if you've ever interacted with me for 5 minutes, obviously I have a calloused heart. But I just felt so comfortable and it was cool. So I remember you asking me, would you do this again? And I was like, kind of was messing with you. Like, why would I ever come to this place where I would like pour out my deepest, darkest fears and thoughts and feelings? But I was like, yeah, I mean, being with you was pretty remarkable. And so we talked later. And then, you know, I didn't think of it much. I was like, okay, I'll see you in September for convention. And that was pretty much it. And then the follow-up started. And I have to say the follow-up was the most impressive piece of what you did, because I swear in my mind, I was the only person you were following up with. And I mean, you can lie to me. Maybe you were following up with 60 people like that, and that would be fine. But the way you made me feel, like your follow-up was so good. It was, how are you feeling since we talked? And I was like, oh my gosh, I blah, blah. I mean, I cannot even, if anyone knew the stuff that I have told you, they were like, you told this person that and you met him twice, because you made me feel so safe. And then you said, okay, well, I'm going to be coming in August. And okay, great. You're coming in August. I'm very, very busy. Like, let me know and whatever. So that was like one, probably a second, right? Like a couple weeks. I'm sure you have like a system or something. So I'm guessing it was 4 contacts between.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So immediate follow-up, maybe a couple weeks later. Hey, I'm coming out in a few weeks, like several weeks lead time. I was like, okay, cool. That sounds good. Whatever. I wasn't in the space. I was super busy at work when you were messaging me, and it kind of just went out of my mind. Then you followed up again that you were coming in August. And then like at the end of July, I was like, when are you coming? And you were like, Thursday. It was like 2 days before. And I cleared my schedule and I drove 2 hours to come see you. And that's just nuts to me. Now, what I've experienced in working with other students or clients that have this high empathy is they feel really, really uncomfortable with this type of follow-up. So maybe it was actually 5 at least. Like, you were basically not leaving Southern California until I came to meet with you, which is not what one would expect with someone with high empathy for the reasons you shared earlier. Can you explain? Oh, well, let me tell the rest of the story. And that night, I have to tell you, to your face, was a life-changing night for me. And I feel so blessed that you followed up by that, because it set a chain of events over the next few days that have really deeply shaped me. And if you had not followed up that many times, I certainly would be more broken than I am today. So I want to say thank you. Why? How did you follow up that many times, even though a couple of times I blew you off?
Because again, coming back to that empathy, I don't mean this to sound rude, but you needed it.
No, I
So
didn't.
I genuinely wanted you to have the opportunity to have it. And that's what it comes down to is I want to help whoever I can. And that's all anybody really wants to do. And so what is it taking away from me to give you as many opportunities as I can for you to say yes? Nothing. It's not doing anything to me.
Yeah.
But it's the genuine, like I really want to help you, and that's where the empathy comes in. Is you can feel that, like, this is where I can help, and this is how I can help, and that's going to be my role for this person.
Yeah. Well, and I think the pursuit is so important when you know that you can help someone and you don't pursue them because they have no clue and they're busy. And I just felt like that was so powerful. And where I think that came from was just the building blocks of using your empathy. If you weren't such a good listener and you didn't know how messed up I was in my mind, right? If you hadn't asked those questions with your empathy, if you hadn't listened in your empathy, if you hadn't affirmed me and not made me feel like I was crazy in that space, you wouldn't have known enough to know how badly I needed you. And if you didn't know enough to know how badly I needed you, then you wouldn't have followed up so incessantly to make sure that I took advantage of that, which, set the course for multiple conversations over the next week about this whole, like, who the heck am I piece, which has been really, really powerful for me. So I want to say thank you.
Thank you.
I told you it'd be awkward if I told you what I thought, and it's not really. I'm the only one awkward around all these feelings.
No.
Empathy 33 for the win.
I'm 33.
I'm empathy 33.
That's fantastic.
That's
I'm feeling it all the time, so we're good.
Yeah, is that shocking to you that I'm empathy 33?
No, not. I mean, wherever it is, it doesn't matter. It just surprises me that it's on 33. Yes, a little bit.
Yeah. All right. Well, faking it till you make it. So how has this helped you to grow your network marketing business as well? Because this is a podcast for network marketers.
I like it. So that, I think, comes back to more of the sales, like my split zoning, like you had mentioned. I use the feeling, the asking the question. And in network marketing, it's doing the same thing. You use the example of choice of two, and just again coming back to that, I can provide all of these things, and these are the skills that I have learned, and then just almost taking a step back where I might feel awkward and saying, these are what you have, now how can I help you? How can I listen a little bit better? How can I make you feel better? And using that empathy, kind of using it and then taking a step back from it too at the same time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Well, and just giving them that choice at the end. So I have kind of two follow-up questions. First would be, what advice do you have for people who are trying to work through this for themselves? And the second would be for the leaders on the call who are those achievers, action people, drivers, and they have an empathy person on their team. That tends to cause some clashing. I would love to hear your advice to both of those people. First, how do I deal with it if I'm high empathy? And second, how do I deal with a high empathy if I'm not high empathy?
Okay. So the first one, for me, at least, I think a really important one is personal development. Whatever you can do to, whether that be coaching, whether that be reading, just working on that personal development every day. Has made a huge impact in me, and changing, that for me, I feel like the fear again, and turning that. I love somebody else has said a quote, confidence is doing it anyways. So when I felt like my empathy was a weakness, I kind of put it at the forefront and used it anyways, and used it to my advantage and made it more of a strength. So that would be like my number one advice is personal development. And whether that be talking to someone and figuring it out with them, and even asking, I mean, all of those compliments you said were fantastic, but someone that has an interaction with you, say, hey, how do you feel like I'm using my empathy? Whether that be good or bad, and then learning from that. And then the other one was for
leaders. So yeah, leaders who are leading someone with empathy, who struggle with this. How would you advise them to coach this person? Because I feel, here's why I'm asking this. I feel like a lot of network marketing leaders, the ones that shoot up, they're typically that action, low empathy kind of person. They just go. And then you know what I hate so much? I hate a couple of these things that I hear. You don't want it bad enough. And feel the fear and do it anyway. And I feel like that, there's some truth to that. But I feel like that could be hurtful to someone with high empathy, right? If I were to say to you, I can't believe you feel like that. What did you say? Like, I'm not going to have another choice. Like, don't do that. That's terrible. Don't, right? Like, feel the fear and do it anyway. Even if it feels like you have to be uncomfortable to blah, blah, blah. And, that type of, like, that's just an excuse. You don't want it bad enough. I can never imagine Nicole saying those things in a million years, but I mean, maybe to her sister, she can. I'm seeing by that laugh, maybe those statements still do sound a little familiar, but what advice would you give to a leader? So not those things. Those I think are bad. What would you have them replace that with?
I think, at least for me, and that's all I can speak from, is personal experience. Being patient and knowing that, even though you might not feel that way, they certainly do. And it can take a minute to get used to that, to get past that fear, whatever you want to call it. What did you say? Push.
Yeah, feel the fear, do it anyway.
Feel the fear, do it anyway. Just being patient and knowing, like asking those questions of, well, what do you even feel comfortable with? Because a lot of the times it's like, well, this is how you're going to do it. Taking away those choices. When that's not my path, like I can get there, but it might just be a little bit differently. So even just the questions of asking, like, well, what do you feel comfortable with? Because I can sure give you that answer, and then going from that. And I think that's the biggest one.
That's brilliant. Honestly. So what do you feel comfortable with? I bet most leaders have never asked that question. Well done.
Because like you said, I can think of certain situations in life, and it's like, well, okay, we'll use just putting yourself out there, selling your business or whatever. Well, just go talk to these 5 people. Well, okay, how am I going to do that? So again,
what am I going to say?
Yeah, like, what do you feel comfortable doing? And then a little bit of role play with that.
Yeah, I would probably add, since your question asking skills and your listening skills, those are the ones that we would want to enhance. I would think that a leader would really serve their high empathy person well by teaching them great questions. Because once you know the good questions, you can just take it and run, and you can outsell, right? Probably anyone without empathy, because, right, like I find myself flying in early. Like, I mean, my behavior is so strange, right? I find myself flying in early to book a time with you when I'm in Utah, right? Like, because of the way you make me feel. I don't know if there's anyone else, like, other than my personal coach, that I operate like that with. And I think that with a few really, really good questions, we can equip our empathy people to build those relationships and to do really well. Any parting thoughts for our people on the podcast?
And then again, using that like as a strength instead of that weakness of, well, here she's the sales marketing. I want to use the word president. Here's this amazing business, and here's Tasha, and I can't.
Oh shoot, you froze.
Those feelings aside and just helping them and using that as a strength instead of using those.
You froze a little bit. You're gonna have to repeat from when you said president. I didn't catch anything like right before that. What'd you say?
I just said, kind of using your empathy as that skill, because when they told me, oh, here you're gonna zone. How do you feel about zoning Tasha? And I'm like, Tasha, like I hadn't met you. I see you. You're this amazing sales leader, and I could have easily said, no, that's a little out of my realm. But again, just pushing yourself and putting yourself out there and realizing, I can do this, and my empathy is gonna get me far, and I can help people, and just owning that.
So good. Katie, so where do you live? Because now everyone's going to need to get foot zones from you. And we're going to talk about raising your prices too, except for certain people. But where do you live? Yep.
I live in Cache Valley, Utah, in a little town called Paradise, northernmost part of Utah.
All right, cool. So if you live close to that area, what would be the best way to contact? Well, if they want to contact you for foot zoning, but if they just want to contact you for encouragement or to say, hey, this was awesome, what is the best way to contact you?
Facebook's great.
But your email's pretty easy to remember. What's your email? What's your email?
My email, zoneyourfeet@gmail.
Yeah, that's an easy one.
Yep.
Cool. All right, so email Katie, let her know how awesome all this great advice was, and if you need your calloused heart to be healed. It might take a few sessions, but she can probably do it. Katie, thank you so much for your time today and your awesome, brilliant advice.
Thank you for having me. I've loved it.